let's first talk about class etiquette. A lot of people aren't aware of dance class etiquette, and this is general to everything. When you come in the room, you're really meant to leave it at the door, which means whatever is going on in your world that day, you're supposed to try to just use this hour or hour and a half of time to really focus in on your body and your dancing and give your brain that kind of break and outlet from all that stress or anxiety or whatever it is that you carry with you, frustration, anger, for the day. Now, obviously, we're all human beings, and that's not always possible. And in my classes, I'm very open to feeling and experiencing how you are that day, you know? So keeping in mind that I run things a little differently, that is part of class etiquette in a lot of places. So just so I don't send you out into the world to take another class going, I took all this information, and then I don't want to get in trouble with somebody who's like, you know, your student has no idea how to behave. So there's that. Secondly, when you come in, you really should immediately check in with the instructor if you have any form of injury for the day. It doesn't need to take 20 minutes at the top of class of explanation. What you need to do is let them know that you're dealing with a certain type of injury and where it's at, and really your instructor just needs that information so they don't try to push you into doing something that is uncomfortable for that injury. Otherwise, you're an adult, you know your body best, you need to monitor your body, which means you're responsible for taking care of it in addition to using it for dance. And if there is a day where you know you can come partway and work hard, but you can't do everything, there's no reason not to come to class. You just need to let your instructor know. If it's a day where it's really bad, maybe you should sit out. Maybe you should come and watch, right? Sometimes just viewing classes, you absorb a lot, especially when you're new and you're a beginner. So this is important. It's also important to make sure you turn off your cell phones, not bring them into the room. You're not supposed to be distracting other students. Remember that they're paying just as much as you are for class, and it's unfair to take their time by chit-chatting on the phone in the classroom, things like that, texting, being distracted, or distracting to others, right? And some of these things are common sense, but we come into this kind of relaxed environment of a dance class, and we forget them because it's not always so strict, especially with me. I'm very laid back. So there's that factor as well. Put your things nicely away, get yourself ready to go, and stand at the bar ready to go. You really should be showing your instructor that you're ready. It should not be the other way around. Your instructor should not have to tell you that you need to get up and get to the bar now because class is starting. We're all there for the same reason. We all know class is starting. So standing at the bar prepared and ready to go. Now this comes to physicality, right? So how do we stand at the bar prepared and ready to go and show our instructor that we're ready to start the class, right? So depends. In my class, we always have a warm-up that starts in sixth position. Sixth position is what I call equal sign feet sometimes, which is feet together. Now in very traditional classic ballet, the feet are really together. And this is important for using six to find your first position, which is toes out, heels together. And that is exactly how we find that first position. We do not want to be standing feet apart and bending our knees and going like this to try to get that first and then turning out extra. This is very hard on your knee joints, your ankle joints, well, all the foot joints basically. So turnout doesn't come from the knee or the ankle or foot actually. It comes from the hip, and you only have so much strength to support turnout. You might be very flexible. You may be able to just go boom, boom, and hold that position using friction of the floor, but you may not have the strength to support that. And in ballet, we need both the strength and the flexibility to support that. So what you need to do is heels together, toes together, standing tall, scooped and lifted, lengthened back of the spine. So sometimes standing tall, people go like this because it's a trick. Their eyes see higher, they think they're taller. But you've actually condensed your spine and shortened your neck. So you want to be level with your chin and eyes and lifting through the back and finding that nice length through all of the spine, from the tailbone up to the top of the head. As you do that, you'll notice that you'll engage abdominals, you'll start to squeeze in the sides, you'll start to squeeze in the glutes, and the glutes are what control our turnout. Since our turnout comes from the hip, these muscles are what will be our strength and support during physical action in ballet to hold the legs apart, open. So when we turn out, we should be feeling active rear ends. I used to say this all the time. I used to have a teacher that had really long nails, and she would say, "No pillows," and poke us in the butt with the nail and to get you to go, right? I'm not going to do that to you ever, even in real life, but keep in mind that you should be squeezing in order to activate rotation. This is where that rotation comes from. It does not come from the back itself. So you'll see a lot of people go twist to try to get their leg out more. This is you taking your pelvis and opening it. Your pelvis, your hip bones are part of your pelvis. It's sitting right here and it creates the hip joint, but the leg can move separate from the hip joint, right? So this is my pretend pelvis and my pretend femur. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look up what a pelvis and a femur bone look like online. You'll start to understand this a little better. So we rotate through here, right? And we have a lot of ability to do a lot of movement with this joint because it is a rotating joint, all right? So that's what we're doing, is rotating our leg inside of our hip, not taking our whole hip and opening it to twist. And from here, we take that sixth position, we lift up the toes with straight knees, no bending, no plies. We open out, squeeze the butt, and set down. And this is where you have enough strength to support your flexibility in your rotation. Again, you might have more flexibility than that, but it is not necessary to over-rotate, and we do not need to injure, especially if we're a new beginner adult. We don't want to be doing that, right? We want to be finding proper technique from the get-go and not creating any more damage than is necessary. Now, let's also be honest. Dance does do some slight damage to the joints, and we work through that and support through that as best we can, but it is any activity is going to do some slight damage to your body and also some really good things for your body, right? So you need to be aware of that. That's why every exercise DVD in the world says consult a physician before you start this exercise program, you know? One, they're making sure that they're covered because they don't want to have you sue them for your mistakes, right? And two, it is something you need to understand. You need to be aware that when you choose to take on a physical activity, you are choosing to take on some form of physical risk, even if you go walk outside, right? So knowing that is important to understand, and being able to judge when you need to rest out of things so that you don't create a chronic problem is important. So keep that in mind. Moving forward, first position is heels together, toes out. And if you're starting an exercise in this position, then you should be at the bar, ready to go in that position, which means one hand is going to be at the bar. And the other hand is going to be low fifth or bras bas, which means low arm. And your feet are in first position and you're standing ready to go. Now, does everyone stand like the military all the time, especially in my class? Not really. But if you're standing ready to go with one hand at the bar, then I know you're ready. And I can just walk to the table and go, cool, music, here we go, right? So this is how you show your instructor you're ready. Now in my class, we actually start the warm up every single time from sixth position. But I don't want you to do the traditional classic six in this moment. I want you to get hip width apart, because we do a little bit of footwork that needs to work from alignment with the hip, not closed in too tight. So hip width apart in that warm-up for my classes is about a fist between the balls of your feet. For some of us, that might be a slight bit bigger, and for some of us, that might be a little bit closer together. When I stand up in front of the mirror, I can kind of use guidelines to help myself see, right? So if I'm having a hard time understanding where my actual hip width is, I can take my hands, put them on my hips, and point them straight down to the middle of my foot. And if I find that my feet are close together, those lines aren't pointing straight down to the middle of my foot, they're pointing to the outside. Okay, well, gotta fix that. Open up a little bit. Ooh, now, maybe they're too big and I'm pointing more towards the inside. Gotta find that right placement. So this is another way to help you find it. Yeah, you're gonna get used to it. It may take some practice, right? So we started the bar in that position with our hands ready to go. In my class, if you were standing like this ready to go for 5 minutes waiting for everyone else, I might be a little worried about you because we're really chill and we chat. But standing at the bar, waiting for other people, that's okay with me. Other classes would not necessarily love that, especially if they're very strict. So being aware of the mentality of your teacher and the way they run their classroom is also important. Now, when we do start into our pliés in my class, we then come from first position. And how do we find exactly where to stand at the bar? Well, distance from the bar can be a challenge for beginners. So let's talk about that for a moment. Your hand should be resting on top of the bar. Your elbow should be softened, but not squeezed at your side, completely bent, like T-Rex dancer, and should not be so straight that it's locked out, right? You should be about half a foot to a foot away from the bar, depending on your height and arm length, things like that. It should be a comfortable resting position that this hand is in. You should activate under the arm, however. In proper ballet technique, we are activating through the sides and the upper back as this becomes our balance point when we are up on our toes, right? You raise your center of gravity when you rise taller, you lower it when you get lower or wider, right? So be aware of these things. And how do we find that? Well, we're gonna stand with bras bas arms low on both sides. We're gonna carry to first position. We're gonna open and lay down. So look, I am a little too close to my bar because I can't just rest my hand down from a first to second opening. So I'm gonna take a little scoot out. I'm gonna open up to first and to second. And now I can gently set that hand there and I'm ready to go. So this is how we're gonna find our proper placement. Softened elbow, right? Not locked out, not too bent. I'm a solid foot, maybe 1.5 feet even in this case, because my arms are kind of long, away from the bar. And I'm ready to go. It is important before your first day of class to know the positions of your feet and arms because we are not 5-year-olds, right? So 5-year-olds get lucky and they get to take the slowest building beginner ballet classes ever. But you're adults, and one, you're gonna get bored if I have you stand there going, show me first position, okay, show me second position, right? Now I do have an adage exercise that we use once in a while to practice them. And it is important to do that as a new dancer. But we have a lot of combination level in beginner adult classes. And this is what scares a lot of people away from beginner ballet classes, is they come in and they don't know the very, very tiny basics like what is a plie, what is a tendu, what is first position. And most adult beginner ballet classes just aren't aligned with that sort of education because it's too slow for most of us. And if you come in and just start trying it, you will pick up on all those things. It will take you a little longer to absorb all the information and you'll feel chaotic inside, but you will get it. But unfortunately, most beginner adult dancers don't feel confident to begin with coming in. They feel a little insecure and a little embarrassed about having to move their body in front of other people. They are very insecure about making mistakes in front of other people. Although I always encourage you to please let that go because the reality of learning is that we all make mistakes in order to learn. And that any professional dancer in the world will tell you how many times they fall on their butt a day to learn something, okay? We just know how to laugh at it, get back up and do it again because that's what our whole life has been. For you, this is a new experience and you come in and it's a little nerve-wracking, maybe terrifying, maybe you carry some kind of trauma from your first class as a kid that you never went back to ballet because of and you really wanted to this whole time and now you're walking in the room with carrying that. we know that all these things are there as educators, right? But it's important to let them go, move past it, and start using your body. The other side of the coin here is that when we carry that much stress in our body, we physically respond to it. And unfortunately for all of us human beings, our natural fight or flight response is to curl in and protect the back of the brain. This is because the back of the brain is your control center for everything that you do, your basic control center. If this gets damaged, you don't breathe right anymore, your heartbeat doesn't work right anymore, your intestinal tract doesn't function right anymore. It's controlling everything that you don't have to think about, right? If this stays undamaged and the rest of you gets damaged in the brain, this will keep you going, but you might be cognitively completely lost. What we see, say, with someone who's so brain damaged that they have no more personality left at all, can't function in a normal scenario, but their basic body functions are still going, kind of like a coma, right? So sorry to get all weird and medical on you, but welcome to Samantha's classes, where you always learn something extra. Anyway, so basically our natural response is to go in like this, and that is completely opposite of what we want to do in dance. We can't tense all those muscles, we can't squeeze that spine down. We need to have length and relaxation in that body so that it's prepared to move the ways we're going to tell it to. So this is super important as well for letting go and being ready to move. And that can be challenging. So take breaths, be prepared, and this is why I'm putting this video out, so that you have some basic knowledge while we have the time at home to kind of feel embarrassed and work through it without anyone around before you come back to classes, right? Or before you start taking a video online that says, okay, plie, here we go, right? Because it's just too much, it's overwhelming. We need to take one thing in at a time and absorb it, and then add the next layer and the next layer and the next layer, like putting an onion back together, right? So, positions for feet. First position, well, starting from sixth, we're gonna turn out, squeeze that glute, scoop, and find that nice lengthened posture. First position, yeah, heels together, toes out. Then we're gonna go to second position. We always transition our feet positions, sorry, battery's warning me, through a tendu. And if you don't know what a tendu is, we're gonna come to that here now. So a tendu is the heel ball toe action of the foot, while the entire leg controls the open, right? Not the knee, but up here. And toe ball heel action of closing. These can be done in any direction, front, side, back. We call it devant, décolleté, and derrière in very classical technique. It's all French. So this is also a challenge. You're learning a whole other language when you're learning dance, because most of the terminology is in French. This is because ballet originated, for the most part, although there are some other connections, but for the most part, ballet originated in France under King Louis XIV, who took it from the ballroom floor as a high society type of dance that was meant to be done to show your clout as a lord or a lady or a king or a queen or duchess and all those things. So basically people danced and it was a requirement. And if you couldn't dance, you were kind of laughed at in the grand courts. And that was taken from there and put on stage as a performance by King Louis XIV. And that was kind of the first ballet ever. So we have this posture that feels a lot like corset wearing. There's a reason. It comes from that time. Yeah, we have this turned out paper doll body. There's a reason, because it came from putting it up on stage and going, well, that looks like normal person in front of me when they're up there, right? So there's certain things that grew into ballet because of this. And this toe ball heel action language comes from that too. So tendu literally means to stretch. You're stretching the foot through that action. You're really pushing it to work through that action. And so from first position to get to second, one side or the other is going to tendu. There's two methods. We either tendu with the one foot and set the heel down and center the weight, or you'll also see tendu one side, tendu to fix the other. You don't want a second position that's much farther than 1 foot length apart, however. So that second tendu is really just a quick correction when it's that method. Truthfully, in the technique I've come from, which is Vaganova technique, which is a Russian technique, by the way, you would actually take the entire leg extension and lower, and that's your second. So sometimes I think that we end up with a little bit wider second than most styles, but it's about 1 foot length apart. From second, we would rise into a tendu to close the heel into the middle of the foot, or about the elastic of the back foot, for third. From third, we would tendu front, devant, and lower the heel and center the weight. Much like second, except from front back. So what fourth is the hardest position in ballet from my perspective, because the hips want to twist in order to create turnout, which is incorrect. We want them square and to open through the underleg or underbutt area in the leg, right? And turning out and centering, not sitting on the back foot. Naturally, we want to stand on that back leg. It's easier, and especially when we tendu to that position, it kind of makes us want to go there. So that fourth position is really challenging. And as you start to plie, which means to bend, thus bend the knees, when you want to get into a grand, you actually have to sit between your heels with the pelvis. And this forces that back knee to want to do things like this, right? Or curl in. And that is all glute work, maintaining that turnout. So fourth is really a challenge, and depending on who's in the class that day, sometimes I don't do fourth. I do third to fifth. Especially with my younger kids, I don't do fourth as much for plies. But we do it a bit now, and it's okay. It takes practice to get the harder stuff. So you're gonna struggle for a while trying to figure it out and making mistakes, and that's all right. So to come from fourth, we then tendu the foot again to close it into toe to heel, which is fifth. Now our goal in all of our crossed and closed positions, or even first position, is to get no spaces between the legs. This is obviously humanly impossible, but the goal is to do that. And the reason that's the goal is because it activates all of the inner thigh connection. What we often do in dance is overtrain the outside quad muscles and a little bit of the outer hamstrings into the IT band, and we undertrain the inside because it's hard to access in a rotated position. So it's extremely important that you're constantly focusing on the inner body connection from the abdominals and the hip and pelvis all the way down through the root of the foot, right? That's really important that you focus on that and make this connection just as important as this one for your rotation. This is how you build strength and support properly for the types of exercises you're doing so that you don't cause too much damage to, say, knee joints or ankle joints as we do 100 billion plies. You're supporting by lifting both sides of the quads, pressing open through here, right? Activating through here. It's not nothing in ballet, even though it's slow, is a lazy exercise, right? There's nothing that's super relaxed. Even stretching, though it looks relaxed, needs to be a little bit active. So keep this in mind. Plie, to bend, doesn't mean to plop or to drop. It means to bend. Bending with control is extremely important. So when I go to plie, I want to control that activity through strength and placement and on the way up. And I'm gonna find that connectivity through my core into my legs that's gonna transfer to my actual dancing on center. The bar is meant for training exercises, but we always treat them like dancing too, because that's how we incorporate that into our dancing later on. The bar is also only here for emergencies. That's why your hand rests on top of it. So you shouldn't be trying to pull and hang all over this thing. Look, I did a very loose bar in my house, and it's been fun because it's made me work the way I'm supposed to, right? And the same goes for you. Don't rely on this thing. Don't rely on your kitchen countertop at home. Don't rely on your chair back at home to be your support system. Find it through your body, all the way up through. So now, those are the feet positions that we use, and obviously because crossed positions exist, there's a third, a fourth, and a fifth, all on the opposite side, which would also come from tendu to get there. Moving on to arm positions, or what we call port de bras, or port de bras, it depends how it's spelled, but basically it means carriage of the arms. Bras means arms. So we start with a low fifth, and we have a lot of things with port de bras, okay? We have positions, and we also have actual port de bras, which mean pathway positions through them, right? There are 6. Well, actually, there's probably more than that if I think about it, because there's other techniques, but we use 6 or 7 of them in Vaganova. So from here, low fifth, we have first position. First is fingers meeting in front of the sternum or the bra line, right? On the waistband of your bra. Fingertips meeting right there. Always shoulder higher than elbow, higher than wrist, higher than fingers, right? Which creates a slope. Always a big rounded circle, right? Not bendy elbows, not straight elbows, but a nice big circle, which means softened elbows, much like at the bar. So I should see a slight point, but not a sharp point. I should see carriage support from under. So I shouldn't see this happen in my first position. That means that I'm trying to lift from up here. You're gonna build a football neck, which you don't want, right? You want the nice, long, graceful neck and shoulders down. So what happens with us in ballet a lot is we first start to pinch those shoulders to hold our arms up. And as you can see, this immediately brings that up into my ears. And it's super uncomfortable, and you're gonna develop some serious tension and stress if you do that. So you wanna find, rather than pinched, an open widening of the shoulder blades. So the wings right here that you can see move, right? No pinch, down and open. This creates that big bear hug circle, but strong and lifted from under here, which is what we want as we give with our port de bras positions. So from first, we have second, which is very similar to second and feet. Second is tricky. From the front, it looks like my arms are straight out at my sides like a letter T, right? However, true second isn't fully straight out. It's still got a little bit of a rounded arm to it. So as you can see, my hands are actually in front of me. And if I were standing, staring straight forward and wiggling my fingers, I can still see them in my peripheral vision. So this is very important for your second position. For your third position in the classical techniques, we're gonna bring the arm in with the leg above our head while the other remains in second. I like to say it like this: 5, or fifth, because this would be high fifth if both arms were up here, minus 2, which is second position, equals 3, so we're in third position, right? Kind of silly and funny, but if you like math like I do, it helps you remember positions. Very classical positions. So our fourth in the most classicals, tendu front with the leg, and this arm rounds in. Again, I like to play the math game. 5 minus 1 equals 4, because this is half a fifth, this is half a first, right? And now we're in fourth. So silly little way to remember it, but kind of fun. And third and fourth tend to be very tricky because there are lots of variations of third and fourth. So I will go over that in just a moment too. We also have high fifth, which crossed feet. Now fifth also, sorry, I didn't interrupt myself, is tricky because it looks like it's right above your head like this. But if I do that, my shoulders are gonna pinch, my chest is gonna splay up and out, my rib cage is gonna disconnect very bad. We don't want that. You wanna, this is a silly way again, if you had a unicorn horn pointing straight off your forehead, the top of your forehead, your middle fingers would prick on top of that horn, just like Sleeping Beauty. And you can tell how nerdy I am now at this point. Anyway, so we're up here in fifth, right? Now, third position, we also have low third. Fourth position, we have lengthened. We have allongé, which is, lengthened here, right? And we have to work not to open too much. We have directly to the sides and down. So there's a lot of options going on, right? And that's where third and fourth can get tricky. But if you go to your very classic basic positions, that's where you want to hone in on and work with. So we've gone through feet positions, arm positions, and how to stand at the bar. We've gone through what a tendu is, what a plie means, and sort of what it is. But we have two types of plies. So I'm going to stand in first and just talk about that real quick. We've talked about how important they are for our strength training and where to activate. But we have two kinds. We have a demi-plie and a grand plie. Demi-plie means small bend. Grand plie means big bend. So demi-plies are important to track our heel placement. Every single position, 6th, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, the heels will stay attached to the floor for a demi-plie, which means I'm going to bend as deep as I can without having to lift my heels. My demi-plie stops where my heels feel forced to come off the floor. Once the heels start to come off the floor, I'm now entering grand plie land, right? Your grand plie should have a demi-plie position on the way down and on the way up. When we have an 8-count grand plie, this means you're going to time it to get 2 counts to your full demi, 2 counts to get to the full grand, which in every position except 2nd and 6th, where heels are going to come up to our sit bones. Your sit bones are the base of your pelvis. Like I said, if you don't know what that is, go Google an image of it. You really do need to know what your pelvis is. I'm going to talk about it all the time in dance, right? So my sit bones are the bottom parts of my pelvis, and when you sit down tall and straight, they poke into the chair or the floor. And the heel connection to those sit bones is extremely important, especially in our plie. Like I said, inner leg to the roots, right? So when I return from count 4 now, because I took 2 and then 4, I'm going to 5 replace my heels and return to a demi by 6 and straighten by 8. This means that you need to move very slow and smooth and connected to properly control all of that movement and make it flow and look nice. And that's how you develop strength. Slow and controlled, right? If you are unable to do something slow and controlled, you don't actually have the strength to complete the task. Once you leave slow and controlled land, you're using momentum. Momentum is useful. We use it all the time. But you really should, if you are a truly good technical dancer, be able to hone in on the ability to do things slow and controlled and develop the right strength for the exercise or movement before you increase the ability to do it by adding momentum. And that's what the basics of ballet is all about, is training that slow, controlled strength into the body parts that are going to be necessary to utilize momentum on the center to up the ante of what the body can do. So every plie you do is training your legs for rising to a releve, which we do at the bar because it's also a training exercise, or we also say eleve in the case of coming straight up without bending the knees with a plie first. If you go to a plie, then it's a releve, which means to rise. Eleve just means lift, right? So sometimes the terminology is helpful in memorizing what we're doing. Sometimes it makes it a little contradicting. Like tendu, to stretch, doesn't really make sense unless you really put it into the foot and understand that the foot is stretching through that exercise. Every tendu, where we heel ball toe out, toe ball heel in, is training strength into the foot to come out of the floor with a pointed position, return to the floor with a pointed position, increasing your jumps, showing that footwork is important in ballet, right? So every tendu is doing that. And it's strengthening your leg connection through your rotation of turnout, etc. And as we build into bigger and more complicated movements at the bar, we are building more strength and control into the body to add momentum to get on center, right? And then we have center exercises that do the same thing, that we then add more momentum to, that get us to a bigger level on center, until we're truly dancing, which now incorporates artistry and emotion and performance ability into all of that strength that you've developed from day one, right? And flexibility. So, complicated layers, which is why you can't just jump into a class and know how to do it already. You may have some natural ability, you may not. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, because truthfully, anyone can learn to dance. I've seen anyone, all types, in my career, and all of them have learned how to dance in some way, shape, or form, and they have done it over a certain amount of time frame, but everyone can do it. So, we've covered most of the basics that start your ballet class, and from there, we're going to cover one more thing before I go. I'm not going to give you every single detail of a ballet class. This is what will get you started when you first walk in the door, and that's what you really need. This is what will get you started when you first go into a video, say if you've never done ballet before. So keep this in mind, review these things. Do not just watch this and go, okay, cool, I'm ready for my first class. You're not. You need to know what first is, what second is, what third is, what fourth is for both your feet and your arms. You need to know how your body should feel and stand at that bar, which means you have to practice it. Dance is building body habits. You can't build habits without repetition. You can't repeat without doing, right? There's no way to just imagine it and have it happen. So, one important thing that I left out that I want to go over is in between exercises, we use what's called a détourné to transfer from one side to the other. And détourné is going to be coming from a high fifth position, so crossed, very lifted, tight, right? We usually finish with some form of a balance, and a lot of our first exercises through the day, our plie, our tendu, our dégagé, right? And once we finish the exercise and finish the balance, we take that fifth, we glue the feet to the floor where they're at, and we do a pivot turn essentially, but in a fifth position, no stepping forward like we do in jazz. We lift through everything, find that balance. We unwind through a first position on releve now, and then rewind through fifth. And here, you then open to first and lower if you're going to begin the next side in first position, or you lower straight down to your fifth if you're beginning the next exercise in fifth, or you lower to the fifth and tendu to the first if you're beginning the exercise in first. This allows you to stay exactly placed from the bar where you should be as you rotate to the other side without having to re-guess, reopen, refine your positions, right? So it also allows us to go, okay, great. All ballet music for classes comes with the pattern repeated twice with a little pause in between. And truthfully, we can get more done in class if everyone finds their balance and learns to détourner, open, and be ready to go in the silence. And these are things that I haven't pushed in any of my in-person classes because we are laid back. But really, you should be immediately finishing and ready to go to the other side without the instructor asking you to do it. This is part of class etiquette as well. If you need to use a bathroom, if you need to get a sip of water in an adult class, politely step out and do that in between exercises. Obviously, if there's an emergency, like, oh my gosh, that food I ate last night did not settle right and I have to go now, then you run and go, and we all understand. But otherwise, the expectation in traditional dance etiquette is that you know that it is inappropriate to physically distract the class by the exit of your body to go do some other activity when it's happening during an exercise, right? So that détourné moment to the other side might be your duck out, or complete the entire exercise before you duck out for your water bottle, to fix something, to get the bathroom. If you're using point shoes, which I have plenty of adult beginners who have worked their way into point, and it is not impossible, by the way, so just keep that in mind if that's something you want to do. There's nothing wrong with that. The ballet world used to be pretty nose up in the air about anyone who was an adult learning point, but thankfully they've gotten over that a bit. And it's really unrealistic and silly that it was ever a thing that you couldn't do if you didn't train from 2 years old. But you know, like we said, this was developed at the royal courts, so there's a little bit of that snobbery along with it, and racism along with it too, by the way. As we know, there are now many more black dancers than there ever were, and dancers of color, and I think that's fantastic, and we need more of that too. And that was something that the ballet world definitely went for a long time as well. Very interesting history there if you ever want to look into it. Check out around the time of Ballet Russe is really, I believe, when we got some of our first dancers of color ever, and they fought hard for that position. So check that out, it's pretty cool. Outside of that, however, the class prep isn't as much as you might think. You just really need to know your positions and some of the basic ideas on how to stand at the bar, and then you're ready to go, right? And how to act in class, right? For when we get back to real life. So I just want to give you guys that today in place of the beginner ballet classes. I don't know if you noticed, but I also tagged like every single post topic the other day. So if you go into those post topics, you have floor bar, beginner, and intermediate ballet classes for the past 3 months attached to ballet, right? Same thing for all the other styles. So go and have some fun with those. Try some new stuff out that maybe you've never tried before. I mean, that's the cool benefit to this scenario, is that you're not walking into your first class ever feeling nervous and anxious, and you have access to all of it through this monthly membership program I set up. And that way you're not, you know, I want to try ballet today, but I don't want to spend that extra $20 this month because I'm saving all my class money for my favorite, which is belly dance or whatever, you know? So this is a cool opportunity to get to experience some other styles. Maybe you'll fall in love with some more dancing than you did before. Ballet is what I call the vegetables of dance for everyone, in every technique, in every genre. You need ballet basics to be good at them. So if you're trying contemporary, if you're trying belly dance, anything that you're doing, you need ballet basics for it. And that's why it's part of the program. The ballroom, holy Lord, ballet and ballroom are like so connected in so many ways. So keep that in mind. It is something you really should be doing. My pro dancers in this group, you know this, so you don't need to hear it from me. But hey, look, great opportunity for you to add it to your repertoire if it's something you've never really focused on, or maybe you need to refocus and rebuild. You know, these beginner classes are great for that. I don't need to tell you. So with that, I'm gonna let you guys go. I hope you had a good time catching up on all this. And for everybody else, join me on Zooms. I'm there. And I know, like, when we first started the Zooms, I had a lot of attendance from people, and it was really nice to see you all, and it's really nice for me to get the opportunity to correct you and help you, because it's not easy when you're at home guessing all this stuff for yourself. You don't have someone else's eyes on you. Like, no pro can fully even train on their own at home. They need someone's eyes on them to help them. And we do this for each other all the time, because that's our reality, is that we low budget people. So we don't have a lot of money for that. So we definitely help each other out a lot, and it's necessary, and it's normal, and it's what you need for real dance education. And we're in this scenario where the only way I can get that to you is Zoom. So pop on those things, come on with me. I want to see you. I want to help you out. I know that you guys are taking these videos afterwards. I see the 25 views a week later. I know that our lives are all crazy right now. I know it's hard to connect with schedules. If you put RSVP on there, I will text you or call you or message you directly if you said you were coming and you don't pop in. I will help you. That's my job, right? That's what you pay me to do. So I'm here for you to support you in this crazy time and try to keep this going. And I also am really working hard on some ideas for COVID-safe dancing that doesn't involve indoor dance studios, because I do know that there is a need for that option for a lot of us, myself included, basically, because I do not like living in an N95 in order to teach or dance, and it would be much more comfortable to be in a regular face mask outdoors, to protect my scenario. And I'm sure that some of you have similar issues, or maybe you just want to be extra careful. So I'm kind of working on that. Hopefully there'll be something coming out of that soon. Even just the idea of maybe meeting at a park for a few classes, that sort of thing. But I'm trying to go a little bigger so that we can have all these options and get into a real world space. So with that, I'm gonna let you go now because I've just rambled for like an hour. I hope that you got some good information out of here, and I will see you all later today. There's level 1, there's floor bar, there's beginning belly dance tonight. It's RSVP on those, or at least come on the live, join me. Love you guys. I'll see you soon.